Hi, and welcome to Echo Shack, where I use vintage and modern recording equipment to make drum tracks, sample packs, and other music productions. In this video, I'll break down a drum sample pack recording that was done on my Tascam 388. I'll show you the mic setup I used, and we'll compare the tape sound to the raw feed that was going directly into the computer. And lastly, I'm going to use some of my favorite plugins to try to recreate the sound that we got from the 388 using the direct feed tracks that went straight into the computer. Because I get a lot of questions asking, well, how do we get this sound in the box? How do we get this sound using plugins? Because not everybody has a tape machine available, or maybe they really love the sound but just don't want to bother with tape. So we're going to cover that in this video. Just to let you know, these drums are available for purchase on my website. There's a link in the description that will take you there. From this session, I've created a pack that has over 10 variations of the drum patterns, as well as some percussion loops. There's also a folder of one-shots so you can make your own patterns. Okay, so the setup for this one was really simple. I wanted to stay with the vintage vibe and the vintage theme, and I only used 3 mics on the drums for this session: an overhead, a snare bottom mic, and a kick mic. In studying some of the classic recordings from the 60s, I learned that, especially, for example, the Beatles recordings, before they started using a snare top mic, they were using a snare bottom. So I thought, yeah, let's give it a try. I had just gotten this Sony condenser mic, this vintage Sony that I found on eBay. So I put it to work, and I was really happy with the result. Let's check out the setup. I've got my Tascam 388. This thing is on a cool rack with wheels. So you've seen some of my videos where I'm on the other side of the room and I can, wheel the Tascam back and forth or bring it over to the patch bay so that I can convert the signals. So the drum kit is this amazing late 1960s Slingerland yellow satin flame wrap. The snare drum is a chrome over brass from the same era. Really awesome drum. Kit is amazing. Sounds awesome. For this, I had it tuned up kind of high to get that kind of late 60s sound. And the sizes are 12-inch rack tom, 16-inch floor tom, 20-inch bass drum. I believe it's 20 by 14 standard kind of vintage size. So for the mics, like I said, 3 mics. There was a ribbon overhead. This actually is my Cascade ribbon mic that I like to use a lot, but I was using my vintage RCA, which happens to be in the shop right now. It's getting re-ribboned. And then I have the Sony ECM 377 mic, which was kind of the star of the show. Really cool mic that I found on eBay just on a whim because I love the aesthetic of the 60s and 70s Sony stuff. And then just a simple D112 on the kick drum. I just scored a D12, vintage D12, so I'm excited. I'll be showing you guys some videos with the D12. But yeah, that's it. That was the setup. Running into the 388 definitely was recording hot. I like how the preamps break up on the 388 and how it hits the tape after that. At the same time, I'm also recording the raw signal into Pro Tools because the 388, you actually have to, you record onto the tape and then you have to rewind it and play it back to actually hear the tape sound. There is no repro head on the 388. So, but I always record digitally at the same time that I'm recording to tape so that I can see where to line things up to. And it also gives me a comparison. So for this video, it's good because you're going to hear the raw sound, the tape sound, and then we're going to kind of try to recreate the tape sound using plugins. I usually play to a click and then I just kind of let the click run, and then I might change the tempo of the click and just kind of just throw down different ideas. Like I said, for this, I was going for this kind of 60s breakbeat inspired thing, stuff like a funky drummer or the Amen, stuff like that, and kind of really blow it out. But also kind of drawing from, like trip hop kind of tempos, like stuff like Portishead and, the classic trip hop stuff from the 90s. Yeah, so let's get in the box and see what it sounds like. Okay, so here we are in the Pro Tools session. From left to right, you'll see down here these orange tracks. These are digital raw tracks. So this was just going through the mixer of the tape machine, not hitting tape and going straight into Pro Tools. And you can see it this way. This happened first. So I recorded, then I rewinded the tape, played it back into Pro Tools, and that's all this chopped up audio here, because when I'm making a sample pack, I do a lot of chopping, sliding around. You can see my tracks are in warp because I do have to do a little quantizing to make sure everything loops properly. So here we go. Raw drum tracks. Kick. Overhead. That's that RCA ribbon mic. And that's that bottom mic. So just check that out. That's really cool. And that's just at the bottom of the snare, like I showed in the video. And it's capturing basically the whole kit. Let's hear that again. And you can see that one's a bit hotter. So I was recording that pretty hot. I usually, when recording the tape, low end information tends to sound really bad if you hit the tape too hard. So I usually go a little more conservative on the kick, which you can see there. Okay, so again, here's all the raw drums together. Okay, so now for the tape drums, you'll hear a little bit of tape hiss at the beginning, and let's check it out. All right, so wow, pretty night and day. So bear in mind that they're going through the same preamps. So sometimes people comment and they're like, oh, you're just crushing the preamps. It's not really the tape. But in this case, this is mostly the sound of the audio hitting tape really hard. So there's definitely distortion happening where there is, things are crunching up. You can kind of hear, almost sounds like little mini dropouts there. But it's just, wow, talk about excitement, really exciting. The harmonics of the drums, bringing out a lot of frequencies. It's just night and day. It's a completely different sound. All right, let's solo them. Here's the kick. So some beefy low end for sure. Beefy low end there. Let's check out the overhead. So definitely a low bump and a little bit of shaving off in the high end. And here's that bottom mic. How can I get that kind of sound using plugins? And it's not that hard, right? We're going to get really close really fast. I picked 3 of my favorite tape plugins. There's so many out there. I mean, there's probably 50 on the market at least, tape plugins. I have a lot of them, but I don't have time to go through all of that. And I'm also not putting them on the individual channels. That would probably be a little bit more of a realistic approach, so that each track is hitting tape. But for this and for the ease of showing you, I'm just setting it on a bus. And I think it works pretty well. So we're going to start from the bottom here. Use the classic Waves J37. I'm going to set the IPS to 7.5. That's what the Tascam runs at. Okay, and we're not using this as a delay. We're just going to use the saturation, basically. Okay, so here's what it sounds like as is. Crank up the saturation. Let's also give it some more input, right? And I like this, how you push the input, it backs off the output, so you're not making it louder. Let's pull the saturation back a little bit. Not bad, right? Not bad. Pretty close. Let's try to level match them. So the low end is a little bit different. The high end is different too. I mean, it's not going to be exactly the same, but so not bad. Not bad. I give this a pretty good rating. Cheap plugin, easy to use. Definitely could tweak it. Gets you kind of in that ballpark with the saturation. The distortion isn't too aggressive. Okay, everybody's favorite. Let's check out Sketch Cassette. So this one's a little harder to dial in because it's kind of known for being like the lo-fi machine, and it rolls off tons of high end with this tape mix knob. So let's dial that back to begin with and see what we got. All right, so that's pretty extreme when I push into the input. Let's pull that back a little bit, pull the saturation down a little bit. That's bypassed. These are the tape drums. Back to the Sketch Cassette. Yeah, again, not bad. Not a bad option. I mean, this is probably the cheapest of the plugins. This thing is, I think I maybe paid $20 for it. I don't know what it's going for now, but you can also play with the wow and flutter, because there is some of that going on with the Tascam to kind of mimic that. All right. And the last one that I chose was, of course, we got to do the comparison with the 388 plugin by IK Multimedia. Let's just get right into it. Let's check it out. So I have already messed with this a little bit. I have it on the 35 formula because I actually think I was using RTM tape in the 35 formula, which is not quite as robust as the 456, but breaks up really easy, so I tend to use it sometimes. And I'm doing a little bit of EQ. I've got the record level pushed up. And let's check it out. So here we go, 388. All right, let's compare it. Back to the plugin. Okay, so this one is definitely the most expensive plugin. I think I got this in a bundle on sale. I think it was about $100 for a bunch of the Tascam plugins. So for my money, I think that this one is definitely the most authentic, as it should be, since they partnered with Tascam and, took a 388 and modeled everything. So I do think this is the closest. With that being said, I think this video shows that you can get that sort of blown out tape sound, which I think is what most of us are after when we're messing with this stuff. I do think subtle tape compression and saturation is really nice. But ultimately, I think it's all about the workflow. Okay, like I choose to work with tape because it's a different mindset. It's a different workflow. You have to think about your mic placement and your setup a lot more before you start. And there's less fiddling around, like with plugins, I have to go around and tweak and mess with parameters. And, with tape, it's just instant. There's some instant gratification to it that I really love. And there is some differences in the sound. There's a realness to it that you don't get with the clean digital sound. Like the plugin, it's almost too perfect. I kind of like how there's like a little bit of warbly stuff happening on the tape version. Again, I'm in it for the artifacts and for the character. But if you don't have a tape machine, you don't feel like buying one, you don't have the setup, you don't have the room, whatever. These are some really great options for plugins, and there's many others out there. And this is just to show you that you can get there pretty easily, pretty quickly. 3 mic setup, really simple. So yeah, please check out my website that has this sample pack from this session available for purchase. And yeah, I would love to hear what you make with this stuff. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you at the next one.